And I can safely say on January 1st, 2020, I quit drinking, never looked back. This was my rock bottom. This is the identity I never want to have again. That's how important I made it to myself, right? Worse, I start to get really, really dizzy and I'm like, what the heck? I just drank 3 beers. And like when I was going through my shame, I was feeling sorry for myself, right? And that became an addiction for me.
Because when you feel sorry for yourself, usually you take care of everybody else. But now, even though it feels bad, at least you're feeling for yourself.
Yes, those are all ways to potentially curtail the caffeine habit.
But the truth is, to move out of the darkness and to the light, every step we take, we build more and more belief of our new identity. What is up, y'all? It's Ryan Morimoto here, and this is our show, Living Better. Welcome to a happier and healthier you. And today, I have something special for you. Boom. Living Better, the identity habit connection, the surprising secret to lasting change. So what does this all mean, right? What does this mean for our life? And you can think about it like this. It's February of 2025. Right? It's February 2025, and maybe you set some New Year's resolutions, maybe a goal back in January that you were going to hit the gym and lose 10 pounds, or you're going to eat healthier, or maybe, you're going to quit smoking, or I'm going to start calling my mom more. Did you start any new habits for 2025? And I guess more importantly, how's it going? And if you're doing good with it, great job. If you stuck with it, that's amazing. But just know that if something, fell off or life got in the way, know that you're not alone. A lot of people, a lot of us can sometimes go back on habits. Maybe life falls off track. It's okay. And that's why today I want to talk about how to create lasting change, how to make it better for yourself. So these New Year's resolutions don't just stay for a week or two, but they're actually sustainable habits that you can build in your life. So when we look at this, we got to look at the overall realistic picture, right? We have to understand that 75% of people, they give up their habits after 30 days. So no shame, we're not alone in this, right? But how did that 25% actually make it stick? How through the chaos of life, through everything that we got going on, tough emotions, highs and lows, how do we stay committed to doing the things that make us happy and healthy? And that's what I want to talk about today, okay? That's what I want you to get from this video is I want you to be able to see that the daily habits you practice define your identity, okay? And this diagram right here, this is by James Clear, okay? And what he shows is that your goals, they're on the outside. The outcomes that you want, they're on the outside, but at the core, it's not just about you wanting to achieve that goal. It's about who you want to become. It's about the identity that you want to take on. The things that we do repeatedly, whether it be drinking, working out, smoking, these repeated things are our identity. So if you can change your identity, you can change the habits. In order to change the habits, you must start by how you see yourself. Do you see yourself as someone who can work out? Do you see yourself as a drinker? Let's break this down, right? A lot of us, when we look at that outcome, we always think of the outside goal. I want to lose 10 pounds. A lot of people want to start working out. And we think to lose these 10 pounds, I have to rely on my willpower. I have to rely on motivation. But that's only a part of the picture, right? That's only the outermost circle. So if we take it a step further, some people say, well, it's about building a process, a system, a plan for yourself, right? Like, okay, I'm going to start hitting the gym every day, 6 a.m. before I go into work. Or I'm going to start meditating every day before my first meeting for 5 or 10 minutes, right? But if the process breaks down, what do you have to fall back on? If the boss gets mad at you and pulls you into a meeting before you can meditate, or the gym is closed, you have to have something to fall back on. You have to be able to see yourself, the identity to be able to say, this is who I am now. To truly stick to this, you have to say, I am someone who prioritizes health. So even if that gym is closed, when I get home, I'm gonna go do a workout. You have to see someone who values mental health, right? Okay, I missed my morning meditation because of my meeting. Later on at 3 p.m., I'm going to go meditate. And this is what James Clear is saying when identity is at the core of things, to build an identity-based habit. And I know that this kind of may sound a little abstract, right? Maybe it can feel even overwhelming to see what it means to identify or create an identity, right? Like this picture here, right? Like look at this picture, you're looking yourself in the mirror, and we don't want to just focus on the outcome. We want to focus on our identity. Like hitting a number on a scale of losing 10 pounds, that's an outcome. But instead, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and see yourself as someone who values physical exercise, who values movement, to make exercise a part of their life, that's how you can actually make change. Or if you want to see yourself as someone who takes care of their mental health, then you're going to make it a priority to meditate, to journal, whatever it may be. And this mindset shift is powerful because when you can see yourself, when you can define your identity, your actions will follow naturally. And we'll break this concept down further, step by step. But first, I want to share something with you, right? I want to let you know that I made mistakes too, right? I made mistakes too. We all have our own story. This is an example to show you, hey, Ryan's human, he went wrong in places too. I've struggled. I've made my own mistakes. And where I found myself slipping into bad habits, right? I found myself trying to do good things, but still doing things wrong. And so I want to kind of share that story with you. And where I want to start is emotional responsibility. I talked about this in a previous podcast episode 28. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't. But essentially, when I talk about emotional responsibility, it's taking ownership of my own emotions, right? It's the mindset that says, no matter what you say, you don't make me angry. I make myself angry. I have the power to prioritize my own happiness over resentments or things that happen to me. And so to build on this concept, I want to share with you how I refused to take emotional responsibility during a period of my life, and how, these habits were built because I refused to take this emotional responsibility. So let me explain, right? So once upon a time, back in 2016, this was the time that I lost a close friend of mine, right? And during this time period, I was choosing to blame myself. I was choosing to not take emotional responsibility. I was choosing not to prioritize my happiness and instead drown in shame. So between 2016 to 2020, I was like this guy here in this picture, right? I found myself trapped in a bad habit, clinging to the comfort of drinking, even though I knew it was hurting me. This was my go-to habit. I used alcohol to mask my pain, to mask the shame I felt, to mask the chaos that's going inside, right? If I felt overwhelmed or if I felt this shame, right, it was heavy, it was hard. But, over time, I discovered that if I took a drink, glug, 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 that things would quiet down, and at least temporarily, I felt better. So this became my solution to my life, right? Any time that a negative emotion come up, I would drink. And these occasional drinkings, oh, it's just on Friday, quickly spiraled into a routine. It became every week and sometimes even every day. I'm not proud to say that. I kind of want to hide and not tell you this, but in all honesty, it became almost every day for some periods of my life. And, I already felt shame, and like trying to get through these things, sometimes it got worse, right? Some weeks are not as good as others. So some weeks, I'd go into work and something would trigger me, a mistake I made, someone yelling at me, or even just remembering an old memory of a friend that I felt shame about. And this just made things worse. It made the shame grow louder, right? It went on until I couldn't really bear it anymore. And that's why I resorted to drinking. And every weekend, right? Just like this picture here, I would go out, right? I would go out and I would drown myself in whatever I could. I would say, this is for my health, this is for the better, but it never lasted, it never lasted because weekend after weekend, I was waking up on the couch floor. I was masking my pain with drinking, right? I was hiding. I was hiding from reality, and this went on for years. And on the surface, just like this picture here, I was wearing a mask. I looked like I was happy on the outside. Family, friends would see me, but I was really lost inside, trapped in a bottle, right? People would see me and say, like, oh, he's doing well. He got a promotion. He's making money. Has friends. Yeah, he may be a little angry at times, but it's okay because, he had trauma, so let's just let him be, right? But I would say that underneath that surface, underneath that mask, it was that same cycle over and over again, week after week, year after year, drinking, getting hungover, trying to mask the pain. And, by the end of like 2018-ish, I would say, it became an inside joke with my family, right? I'd show up after a long weekend of drinking, looking hungover, miserable. Oh, what's going on? And, I would say to them, no more drinking. I'm done. I swear off of it. But sure enough, by the next weekend, by the next Friday, I was drinking again. And it became so predictable at a point in time that the truth is my identity became masking my pain with alcohol. It became when I walked through that door, my family would say, without even me realizing it, right? They would say, like, hey, Ryan, no more drinking, right? No more drinking. You're good. And I would kind of laugh it off and things. But honestly, underneath, I was hurting. I really wanted to quit, but I couldn't stop. I was always just finding another way to justify another drink. Maybe I was angry, about something that happened at work. Maybe it was even a celebration. Hey, I got a promotion. Hey, my friend's buying a house. But it didn't matter. Whatever the reason, I identified myself as a drinker. Drinking was just who I was. And in 2019, I gave it my all to quit. Tried to quit. I avoided grocery stores, trying to stay away from them. I even skipped out on some parties, some hanging out with friends. And, I even went a couple weeks without drinking for some periods. But sure enough, again, no matter how hard I tried, at the end, when I was just super stressed, I would just tell myself, okay, one drink's okay, right? One drink's okay. No one will know. But it was never just one drink. Once that bottle was in front of me, I just couldn't stop because deep down, I still identified that drinking would help my pain. It would help my stress. This is really who I honestly thought I was, right? And what I can say is that, as we get to this part of the story, this is the lowest of my low. 2019 was hitting my rock bottom. And, this part of the story, I can honestly say, is what keeps me sober to this day. This was in 2019. And I can safely say on January 1st, 2020, I quit drinking, never looked back. And any time that I feel like, oh, maybe I should go back to drinking, maybe this is okay, I think of this moment. This was my rock bottom. This is the identity I never want to have again. That's how important I made it to myself, right? So my rock bottom, right? Back in 2019, I was house sitting for a friend, okay? A family friend. And they had a dog, okay? And I was supposed to watch their house for like a week or so while they went on vacation, go over there, feed the dog, all that kind of stuff. And one night during this week, my friend came into town, a friend that I didn't see in a while. Hey, I'm only here for a night. Let's meet up. So I was like, sure, let's go do it. Went to get some beers, and I just had a few drinks. And really, it was only 3 beers. Right? I took an Uber home. I was fine. I wasn't even drunk, just a little buzzed. Right? What wasn't bad. But when I got home, everything changed. I started to feel sick, like my stomach started to hurt. Right? I unlocked the door. I start walking through the door. The sickness starts to feel worse. I start to get really, really dizzy, and I'm like, what the heck? I just drank 3 beers. Like, this shouldn't have happened. And then sure enough, 2 minutes later, boom, I ran into the bathroom, started throwing up everywhere in the bathroom, and I just passed out. I passed out on the toilet. I'm not proud to say it, but head down on the toilet, passed out. And a couple hours later, I woke up. And when I woke up, I was kind of like, whoa, what just happened? And I started to panic because I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be over feeding the dog right now, a couple hours ago. So I cleaned myself up. I rushed out and I went to my family's friend's house. And, when I got there, it happened again. I just didn't understand it. Once I got to the house, 2 minutes later, I just ran to their bathroom and I threw up everywhere. I mean, on the floor, toilet, a little too much information, TMI, but it was everywhere. And then this time, I even passed out in it, in my own filth. And I'm not proud of this, right? And when I woke up, it was like a train hit me. It was like, what is going on, right? I was lying there trying to clean stuff up, feed the dog. I was lying on their couch, and it was like I was watching myself in a movie, like third person point of view, right? And I hated what I saw. I really did. I was thinking to myself, like, how did you do this? How did you get here? You didn't even drink that much, yet you neglected your responsibilities. You put an innocent dog's health at risk. You made a mess everywhere, and this is not okay. You need to stop. And then that was it. That was my rock bottom, right? Anytime, this was the moment that I saw a different version of myself. This was my new identity, right? I didn't want to rely on alcohol to cope anymore. And so I made a decision. On the last day of 2019, I told myself, no more drinking. And on January 1st, I committed to that new identity. I chose to become someone who didn't drink. And I can honestly say I haven't had a drink since. And sure, I used tips and tricks along the way. And I'll be the first to say that addiction is not easy, but I committed to being sober, right? I would do the small things like, bringing carbonated water to parties, avoiding peer pressure, making small adjustments. But I know we can't hide forever. And I know not everybody's story is the same. We may need more help than just carbonated water. We may need things more than just a small tip or trick. But I would say the biggest factor, the one thing that truly helps, is embracing a new identity. I embraced myself as someone who was sober. That meant I took emotional responsibility for everything. It meant that alcohol wasn't going to dictate my life anymore. It meant I wasn't going to mask my pain with alcohol. It meant my new identity was to say no. And that was more important to me than any feeling, any numbness, any way that the drunkenness would make me feel. Saying no became more important to me than that numbing feeling, right? So I hope you can remember, if you want to change your habits, if you want to improve your life, it all starts with choosing a new identity. It all starts with you. It starts with you having the power to decide what you want to be, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to choose you. I want you to choose to live better. And so I have a few resources that I want to share with you. This being the first one, a book that helped me live better. A book called Atomic Habits. It's by James Clear. And some of you may have already read it, right? If you're looking to understand habits, how they work, this is a really good resource. And I know a lot of you might have already read this, but I think it's beneficial for this discussion today and for a lot of people to see. And some of the key takeaways, right, are tiny habits, tiny small changes can have large, massive results. Just 1% better every day will compound to big results. Number two, instead of obsessing about a goal, we build a process for ourselves. It teaches us to build systems that help us maintain consistent progress. And finally, number three, most important of all, it emphasizes to have identity-based habits. When you align your habits with who you want to be, the person you want to become, real change can happen, right? And so one of the main concepts from this book that I want to share with you is called a habit feedback loop. And I want to be able to break this down because this is a 4-stage process. I'll blow this up big so that you can see it. And this is a feedback loop designed to solve problems. That's what habits are. You face a problem and it's a response to fix that problem. And how we can look at it is, number one, there's a cue. There's something that triggers the habit, right? It's the moment your brain recognizes something needs attention. So if you think about like a phone buzzing, right? You get a notification on your phone, beep, beep. You hear it buzz. That's a cue, which then leads you to step two, which sparks a craving. This is a desire to take action, the motivation. In the case of the phone buzzing, you now have curiosity. I wonder who texted me. I wonder who called me. I wonder what this notification's for. And this builds a curiosity inside of us. So you crave to know that information. What is it? So then that leads you to step three. And this is the actual habit itself. This is the response to satisfy the craving. So you pick up your phone, start scrolling through social media, or start opening your notification so that you can see the text message or whatever it is. And that leads you to step four, which is now the reward. Finally, you experience the reward, which reinforces the habit. You feel satisfied knowing that your mom texted you or that someone liked your Instagram post. Now your brain registers that satisfaction with picking up your phone and scrolling through Instagram or opening your phone and checking your notification. And time after time, as you do this day after day, it reinforces this loop, whether it's good or bad. And this simple process can be applied to anything in our life, any habit, whether it's good, whether it's bad. And we can have that power, right? We have that power to recognize these different stages and make deliberate changes to these loops, right? So for example, if you want to break the habit of checking your phone, you can disrupt the cue. You can put your phone on silent. And then this way, the habit works in your favor. And so now that we kind of understand this loop, let's walk through an example together, right? Let's take this and go through an example together so that we can see, right? So let's go back to my story, right? I felt shame in my alcohol addiction. I'm not proud of it. I'm not trying to brag about it, but I did feel shame, right? I felt that shame. And when I felt that shame, that was the trigger. That was the cue for me to start saying like, hey, I had a rough week, right? Or maybe, hey, tomorrow's Friday. Maybe seeing the calendar itself that tomorrow's Friday was the cue. Whatever it was, I noticed that my escape was coming up, that it was possible that I would be able to start drinking. So what would happen inside of me, right? I would start to have a craving. I would start to feel that need to numb my pain. And I think about how, ooh, last time I got drunk, this is how I felt. This will make the pain go away, at least for a bit. So I started to crave alcohol. I was craving that numbness to solve my problem of feeling shame. So then what would happen next, right? I would go and get a drink. I would start texting people like, hey, what are we doing this Friday? Or I would go to the store, buy a 6-pack of beer, whatever it was, and then I would start drinking. And this became an automatic response because I would feel that drunkenness. It was like I was on autopilot, right? This becomes an autopilot pattern because we feel a reward. Once that reward kicks in and I take that drink and I feel drunk, my problems go away, the voice in my head quiets down, I feel numb. Okay, I feel good. And this reinforces that behavior of anytime I feel shame, drinking will solve the problem, right? So just know that once you see how this habit pattern works, once you see that it's a 4-step process, you can see the habit loop play out in real time. So you can start to see how to stop these things. And I'll go over this with you in more detail, right? But first, here's the $1 million question, right? How do you stop? How do you actually break that cycle? And what I want to share with you is if something is ingrained into your identity, like drinking was for me, you're going to have to find a new identity. For me, the answer wasn't to stop cold turkey and just ignore it, right? And I know what you're thinking, Ryan. You use sparkling water. Very funny, man. I've been drinking for 20 years. How is sparkling water going to help? Like, I get it, right? Kicking addiction may be harder than just drinking sparkling water. You know, a replacement strategy may sound simple, but it's effective. And if we add into other things of support to help, like therapy or support groups, you can use these tips with the extra support to make lasting change, right? Because here's the thing, a bad habit like this drinking here, it meets needs, right? And that's why we're okay with it, because it's meeting our needs. We don't have to just get rid of something and then expect our needs to be met. We have to understand we still have to meet our needs, right? And take my story, for example. If I was drinking and it made me feel good, I like the bubbles, well, instead, something satisfying like the sparkling water would help. I also quit smoking cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes a while ago and I craved that calmness, that inhalation. So instead, I would meditate. I would do deep breathing anytime I felt that craving, because I could still slow down and get that same effect from just meditating. And so for you, we'll figure out what kind of replacements are viable for you. And what I want to draw your attention to is let's bring up James Clear himself. He has a good point, and I put a video here, so I want you to be able to see it, hear it for yourself from James Clear, the man who made this all possible.
So if you want to break a bad habit, there are kind of 3 potential paths you could take. So the first is you can eliminate it entirely, so elimination. Second option is you can reduce it. So you could like curtail it to the desired degree. I don't want to never drink caffeine. I just want to drink less of it. And the third option is you could substitute it. You could replace it with a different habit. And of those three, oftentimes replacing it is actually the more effective option. So, for example, if you get your caffeine from drinking Coke or soda or something like that, then maybe you find out, hey, you know, something I really love from this experience is I actually just like drinking a carbonated beverage. And so,
Okay, so three main ways, right? You could get rid of it completely, you could mitigate it, or you could replace it. And today I want to focus on the replacement and really lock that definition in there, right? We have to be able to define our needs from our experience. So in this case, being able to say like, oh, when I drink soda every day and I want to stop drinking soda, oh, I like the carbonation, right? So I can choose that. Or if you're using caffeine for the example, oh, well, maybe instead I can substitute with something else. So let's listen to how he says we should think about solving our problems and replacing habits.
it's the carbonation that I like. And maybe if I substitute it with sparkling water or something like that, I still get the carbonation sensation, but I don't have the caffeine associated with it anymore. And so that's a way of substituting for that behavior, and you still get something that the experience provides. This is actually kind of an important, just like larger picture, big picture thing about habits, which is every habit that you have, we build habits to solve the repeated problems that we face in life. And I'm using problems in a very general sense here. You know, like let's say that you come home from work and you feel tired and exhausted from a long day. Well, in a sense, coming home from work at 6 p.m. and feeling tired is a problem. And especially if you experience it repeatedly, you got to come up with some kind of solution for that. And generally speaking, we just kind of like try things out in life. And so you can imagine one person solves the problem of feeling exhausted by scrolling Instagram mindlessly for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And another person solves that problem by playing video games for an hour. And a third person solves it by going for a run for, 20 minutes. And those are all solutions to the same kind of underlying problem, but some of them are more healthy or more productive or serve us better than others. And what do you think the odds are that the solutions you've come up with to the repeated problems in your life are the optimal one? Like, it's just so unlikely that whatever you happen to have stumbled into throughout life is the perfect way or the best habit that serves you most. So
Awesome advice here. And if we really look at it from solving a problem point of view, we can really see why we do our bad habits, right? Like, oh, I don't want to drink that afternoon caffeine. Why am I doing this? Well, maybe because when I come home from work, I'm tired and I have to do things. So if we can define the problem moments, like for me, when I felt shame and I didn't want to feel that, we can catch the bad habits of drinking, right? And we can choose healthier habits. And like he said, we sometimes just go through life and we have so many problems going on that we just want the easiest solution to solve things. And like he said, it takes a conscious effort to say, okay, eating chips when I feel stressed is not helping me. So I need to find a substitute for these chips. And it's okay if my first choice is not the optimal one. It's okay to stumble through life and find these changes. And that's what I really want you to see is be able to define the problems in your life. Why do I do this? And how do I solve it? And then now we can look at seeing, okay, how are we going to do good habits? Let's see how he says to make this happen for yourself.
I think what I'm trying to get at there is maybe take a little bit of the pressure off yourself and don't worry about judging yourself so much. You're just trying to solve the repeated problems that you face. But once you realize that it's unlikely that your current solutions are the optimal solutions, well, now maybe we can step outside and above ourselves and look down and try to come up with a better solution. So rather than drinking a Coke to get the carbonation, we can drink sparkling water. So that's one example for the substitution. If we want to take the other path of reduction, something I've noticed about myself is if I get a 6-pack of beer and I put it in the front of the fridge, like in the door or on a shelf that's like right at eye level, I'll drink one every night just because it's there. But if I take it and put it on the lowest shelf in the fridge and like it's kind of all the way back in the corner, I can't really see it unless I'm bending down, it'll sit there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And so I'm like, did I want it or not? Like if it was obvious, then I grab one. But if it wasn't, then I avoid it. And I think that's a simple question to ask yourself. Where do I get my caffeine? Is it coffee? Is it soda? And is that really obvious? Is it like the coffee sitting right out on the counter? Is the soda like the first thing I see at eye level when I open the fridge? And how can I make it less obvious? In Atomic Habits, there are kind of what I call the 4 laws of behavior change. And it's just this big picture view of how to build a good habit. And so if you want to build a good habit, you want to make your habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And if you want to break a bad habit, you just do the opposite of those 4. So you want to make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying.
Okay, so I want to hone in right here on this obvious point, right? Obvious. That's the trigger part of the habit. If something is obvious to you, like you have your alcohol in your fridge, like I did, and I could see it every day, then I'm probably going to drink, like he said, right? But if it's not in the house, then you stand a better chance not to drink. So when we look at building our habits, those are very key points, right? Making it obvious, attractive, right? These things will help us see what is good in our life, what's bad, and being able to say, is this easy? Is this satisfying? Those 4 main laws, when we look at building good habits versus stopping bad habits, it will help us reinforce our new behaviors when we can make these changes. So let's see what he has to finally wrap up on making things obvious, easy, satisfying, and attractive.
And so I think, how can you make coffee or soda invisible? How can you make it difficult to drink, like keep it outside of the house, etc.? So there are a variety of strategies you could use here. Like let's say you live with a family and other people are going to want to drink it, but you don't want to. Well, there's this little kind of diabolical Tupperware container called the kitchen safe, and
Yeah.
it has a lockbox code on the top of it. And so you could give the other family members the lockbox code, but then they don't give it to you. And you just put the soda inside of that. And so it stays in that Tupperware and you can't access it. Yeah. So finding ways to increase friction or to make it difficult or to make it less obvious, those are all ways to potentially curtail the caffeine habit.
All right. So that was some great advice from James Clear. He's the one who made the book that we just discussed about, and obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. Good ways to think about it. Is it obvious that the beer's in my fridge? Yes. Okay. Change that. How do I make it attractive versus unattractive? Think about that time I was on the couch and just throwing up in the bathroom. Is it easy? Well, if it's not in my house, nope. Is it satisfying? Think back. That disgust of what throwing up tasted like. It's not satisfying, right? And so what he was saying is it's a lot of times easier to choose a replacement rather than get rid of something completely. So I want to blow this up here for you as an example, right? So if we're going back to my example, I used to open the fridge, like the right side of this picture here, and see a fridge full of beer, alcohol, different types of liquor. And when it's staring back at me, it's like calling my name, like, drink me, Ryan, drink me. And, I knew I had to make a change. I had to get rid of these things and replace it with something better. So for me, like the left side of the page, I started to put healthy foods in my fridge, right? More healthy foods, all sparkling water, no alcohol. And this, makes it obvious, right? It makes it obvious that I'm going to do something different. And, then I made sure that the carbonated water I was drinking, that I actually liked it. If I don't like Perrier, I'm getting LaCroix or whatever it may be. It has to be satisfying to me. It has to be attractive. And, let's be real. It's, if we can frame it in our mind to make it more attractive, then it's easier to grab a can of LaCroix rather than the hungoverness, throwing up of the beer. That really makes it all the more attractive. And as we were talking about things being satisfying, right? That kind of brings me to this next resource. And this next resource is a way to dive deeper into our needs. And so what I want to show you here is, this is a picture by Tony Robbins. And this is a framework of how habits take control of our lives. So I blew it up so you can see variety, certainty, significance, connection, growth, and contribution. And Tony Robbins says that these are our needs. We have human needs that we need to meet. So if we could think about our addictions, our bad habits, our good habits in terms of these needs, it will help us see what we need to replace, what we need to change, right? Where certainty is the assurance that you can avoid, pain, and you have pleasure. The variety aspect is we need an up and down, right? If everything's completely the same, there's no new stimulus, we don't feel like our needs are met. We need some variety. Significance meaning feeling unique, love, important, special, that we're needed, right? And the connection aspect being a closeness to other people. I'm sorry, the loved one goes here, right? Like you're in union with somebody. You and another person have a strong connection, and it can be within yourself. You can have a connection within yourself. And then finally, the last two, right? Growth being an expansion, right? Growing into something new, or a contribution being a sense of service to help other people or bring this outward. Those are the 6 human needs. And Tony Robbins suggests that if we meet at least 3 of these needs, it can become an addiction, whether it's a good positive habit or a bad habit. So to steer us to a more fulfilling life, we got to choose the good habits and figure out how to meet the needs of our bad habits. So let's look at Tony Robbins explaining this in more detail.
So let's see what we know. So far, we know 4 of the 6 needs. The last 2 I'm going to tell you in a minute because they're so clear. What's the first of the 6 human needs? Get it in your body, sit up in your chair, say it out loud. Go. Certainty. Who has a need for certainty? Who? Everyone. The only difference in people is which of these 6 needs they make number 1 and 2 through 6 priority, and your belief, your map about how to meet it. Can you meet certainty in a way that's totally destructive, but in the moment it works? Yes or no? What's a negative way you meet certainty? What's one of them on your list that when you're uncertain that you do that really isn't good for you, but it works?
Drinking.
Say it out loud. How many had eating on your list? How many had smoking on your list? How many had drinking on your list? How many got pissed off on your list that you're certain? Okay? What's the second human need? The need for what? What is it? Who needs uncertainty? Who needs variety? Who needs surprise? Who? Everyone. And you know what? If things are going too good, you'll things up just to create some variety. Some of you think life's about balance. You say to you, I don't want life to be up and down like this.
So one main point I want to take away, we have these 6 different needs, and they could be prioritized differently for each person. Some people may value certainty more, some people may value connection more, and it's important to know what you value most, what you prioritize, right? What I say earlier, prioritize my happiness. I'm prioritizing connection, or what do I prioritize for my human needs? Because we all have multiple needs, but which ones mean the most to us? And once we can analyze this and know within ourselves, now we can start to make change. And let's let them keep going on this.
I want my life to be a straight line. Well, if you go to the doctor and they hook you up and you're a straight line, what does that mean? Death. We need variety to feel alive. Now, I know some of us like to have less up and downs. Wouldn't be a bad thing every now and then. But we go through seasons and phases, and some seasons are more intense than others. And once you make it through some tough seasons, you can handle it. You can turn it into a roller coaster you enjoy instead of something that's killing you. That's part of the game. What's the third human need? The need for a feeling of what? Another word for that is to feel unique, to feel special, to feel important, to feel needed. All of those are the same basic need. Who has that need? Who? Some people say, I don't need that. I don't need all that significance. I don't need money and cars. I'm a Christian. I'm a Jew. I'm a Muslim. Right? But the truth of the matter is, do some people use religion to be significant? Yes or no? And will people kill other people in order to feel significant? Yes or no? All in the name of whatever they want to make up based on their blueprint. What's the fourth human need? We all need connection and what? Who needs it? How can you get it? Unlimited ways. Most common way that takes the least amount of risk, have a big problem. Because if you get up and you go, well, I have this problem and I do these things and this and that, and people don't connect with you, you can go, they don't understand, and you can connect with yourself. Feeling sorry for yourself is the most common way people get connection.
Ooh, I want to sit in that for a second, right? Because he talked about 2 really big needs, significance and then connection. We want to feel important. That's why significance probably means a lot to all of us. And the connection one, I discussed how being connected doesn't necessarily just have to be connected between me and you. It could be a connection within yourself. And like when I was going through my shame, I was feeling sorry for myself, right? And that became an addiction for me. So let's let him keep going and kind of explain this connection concept a little deeper.
Because when you feel sorry for yourself, usually you take care of everybody else. But now, even though it feels bad, at least you're feeling for yourself. And it's such an addiction because it's certain you know it works, right? Because you know it. And it's connecting with yourself. And if you have a big problem, it's significant as hell. Guess what? Now you're totally addicted to your problem. It's not that your problem isn't real. It's that you're not going to change your problem. Because you don't understand what I've been through. And it would be true they don't understand it. But the reason you stay with the problem is it meets your needs. Listen to me. If you got a problem,
It meets three needs, right? Like he said, if it meets at least three needs, you're addicted to it, whether it's good or whether it's bad.
that you're smart enough to know how to change or deal with, and you're not, it's because you're meeting your needs with your problem. Not in a good way, but in a way. How many follow this? Say I. And all it takes for you to be addicted is for your brain to link up that behaving that way, thinking that way, or having that problem meets at least how many? 3 of those needs, and you're going to be addicted. Only way you're going to get out of it is get addicted to something better. Something that's good for you, good for others long term. Then you deserve to have your needs met. You just want to meet them in a better quality way. That's all. Make sense? Now, those first 4 needs, I call the needs of the personality. Right? They're the needs of your personality. And let me tell you something. Every person in this room, any person alive, will find a way to get certainty, even if they have to make it up. Even if they have to make up a story. Every person in this room will find a way to get variety. Every person will find a way to be significant. If they can't do it any other way, they'll get significant at some game. Or they'll get significant at writing things to tear other people down on the web, and they can do it instantly. Or they'll get significance by being in a position where they tear somebody else down and talk about how they are. Because really they feel insecure, uncertain, and insignificant, so they tear somebody else out to feel certain and secure and significant. Everyone's going to do it. The only question is, are you going to do it in a way that's positive, neutral, or negative? It's the only question. You're going to do it. But the final 2 needs, not everybody meets. These final 2 needs are spiritual needs. Not spiritual in a religious sense, spiritual meaning your spirit feels alive when they're met. And they are determined whether you're fulfilled or not. The first needs will make you feel okay. These needs make you feel fulfilled. Number 5, you must grow. We all know we either grow or we what? That's it. If your relationship isn't growing, it's dying. If your business is not growing, can you hold a business stagnant? Yes or no? Hell no. Right now we've watched this economy and we've watched people talk about the economy is going to turn around. It can't.
Growth. I actually really like emphasizing this one because if we think about it, any of our bad habits, if we can put something in its place, right? If we can stop drinking for meditating, we're growing, right? And we're gonna feel that spiritual. Same thing for a relationship, right? We can just try to have conversations, between a man and a wife, or, let's look at this past discussion, but then if you don't talk about things and instead you resort to I can't hear this, I need to go drink or I need to go watch TV, we're not growing. But if we can push that and change that habit, now we're growing, right? So growth, I think, is one of the huge ones that we can lock down to on these 6 human needs on why we should change the habit. So let's look into this further.
Can't possibly turn around without growth in jobs. It's driven. 70% of this economy is driven by spending. You can't spend when you don't have a job. So the bottom line is, if it's not growing, it's dying. And by the way, some things die off so something new can grow. It's a season we're going through. It doesn't last forever. Summer's not forever. Fall's not forever. Dark-ass winters aren't forever. Now, how dark it is, this isn't forever. You know it and I know it. But you know what? You can make your season quicker when you change the meaning like she just did. Right? You play the cards you've been gotten, and I'm going to play these cards. Whatever they are, I'm going to own this. I'm not going to let the world control me anymore. I'm taking it back. How many follow? Say I. So you got to grow. I really believe the universe doesn't care if you're happy. It cares if you grow. Because if you grow, the 6th thing becomes possible. You have something to give. We only have something to give that's special if we grow. We got to grow and give. If you just give to yourself, you don't feel alive. We've got to contribute. Number 6 is contribution. You've got to contribute beyond yourself to feel like your life is meaningful. Life's not just me, it's about we, and we know it. The first thing that happens when you're excited about something, you're real excited. How many of you think of someone when you're excited about who you want to share it with right away? How many got something like this in your life? Say I. Why do you want to share it? Because by sharing it, you're contributing something. You're sharing something. It grows. Some people, whenever they've got a problem, they want to share it too. But it's the way to make this connection. So these are the 6 needs. So now watch. Remember I said there were 2 differences in people. We have the same 6 needs. So here's a fireman on 9/11 who's going to run up into that World War, or up into, I should say, the World Trade Building, and he knows he's going to die. Were there some men and women that knew they were going to die, sent people down, kept going up to save other people? Yes or no? Why? Why would a person be willing to give their life for a stranger? There's only 6 reasons. Take a wild guess which one you'll give your life up for. Significance, love, contribution. A mother or daughter will take the bullet themselves instead of let their child take them. That's love. That's a love most people don't know. Human beings have this incredible capacity to step outside themselves for something greater.
Woo! That was deep. Let's unpack that last part for a second. Emotions are like seasons. It's not forever. And whether it be you feeling shame, you feeling negativity, know that there will be ups and downs. Same thing with the bad habit. It could be a season of drinking. It could be a season of overeating. But you have the power to choose and not let that season drag on longer. We can change that meaning of negativity, like he says. And just to round it out, growth and contribution are the ones that are going to make us feel more alive, the most powerful. If we have a family, right, and we have a bad habit of, I don't want to talk about this, I'm going to go watch TV, right, or I'm going to go drink, and we can't deal with the tough things, then we're not contributing and we're not growing. But if we can flip that in our mind and say, I'm going to stop saying I'm too stressed and I have to watch TV, but instead, yes, wife, let's talk about this. Right? Or same thing at work. I can't deal with this. I'm going to go work on something else. But instead, okay, I'm going to contribute more, right? I'm going to grow and change. Now we have we are meeting more of our needs. We're stepping more into that spiritual growth, like he said. And I want to be honest about things for myself, right? So like let's take a look at this. I put some stars around here on the ones that, when I was drinking with my friends, I was meeting some of my needs. It was very certain, right? It was a predictable escape that I can go and drink and feel numb. I could count on that alcohol to make me feel drunk. And I felt like it was controlling my emotions. So I thought I was certain about it, even though that certainty wasn't real. It was an illusion. Number 2, it met my variety, right? It added excitement into my life. Oh, we're going to a new bar. Ooh, this is a new beer for me to try. Oh, there's new people I can meet, right? And that kept things interesting. And that kept variety in my life. So that met need number 2. And then finally, need number 3 was it gave me some type of connection. It made me feel like I was belonging with friends when we could share stories, talk, laugh. And even if I was alone, I was making that connection to myself of like, oh, this is going to help me not feel this shame, right? So even though this is built on shaky foundation, I was meeting my needs. And if we think back to what Tony Robbins said, 1, 2, 3, those are the 3 needs that it was meeting for me. And that's why it became an addiction to me. That's why it became my go-to, drinking to numb my pain, because it was a solution. And so what I want to show you now is if I blow this up, when I stopped drinking and I identified myself with someone who didn't drink, and I know sparkling water might not be the solution for everybody, but it was for me, right? But not only did it help me quit drinking, but it met more of my needs. And I take this in a positive light, right? The glass half full. I can honestly say I'm happier because not only did I meet the certainty, right? Something where I knew I wasn't going to drink and I was going to be able to hold a can of sparkling water at a social event and get that satisfying carbonation, that fizz, right? It became a healthy alternative that I knew I was certain I was going to do. Not only that, but it brought variety into my life. I could drink lemon, I could drink lime, right? I could have things fresh and exciting. and I can still have the connection. I can still go to other people and socialize with them. While they drank alcohol, I didn't. And it even helped me stay present in conversations and give me to something to talk about, my growth, which is how it met need number 4, right? See how that star is bigger next to growth? That's because it meant more to me, right? That growth symbolized to me, you know, giving up alcohol for sparkling water. That symbolized growth to me. It was a reminder that I was evolving to the better version of myself, of who I wanted to be. It made me feel more alive, right? And by making these substitutes, we can find ways to still meet our needs, right? Without compromising what we truly love, what we truly prioritize. And you can gain so much more of what life means to you. You can gain so much more if you're honest about your needs and how you meet them. And so I know, you know, I know what you could be thinking at this point, like, holy moly, Ryan, this has been long. When are you going to end? Is this like a lecture? And look at these slides, they're so complicated. I'm sorry. I have a very logical brain. Bear with me. I'll try to make this fun, engaging as possible. But let's just get through this step by step. I want to show you a cheat sheet, right? The final resource of today is how we're gonna break this down for ourselves. So let's look at this in detail, right? Step 1 is to audit your life habits. All right, take a self audit. You're going to play detective, get that magnifying glass out, and think of it like as a reality check to yourself. What habits are you holding on to? The good and the bad. The ones that make you cringe, that you don't want to think about, those are ones that you have to write down, right? Write all of this down. Even if you have to pause this video, start writing this down, and know that you don't have to show anyone else this list. Be brutally honest. This is self-awareness. This is step 1, because once you identify this, then you can move to step 2, which is defining your new identity, right? So since you are clear now with who you want to be, what habits you want to stop or start, you not only need to know what you want to change in your behaviors, but how you're going to change your identity. Instead of saying, I want to quit drinking or I want to quit smoking, right? You say, I am someone who values health. I am someone who values keeping my body clean for a healthier future. Sounds way more impactful, way cooler, more powerful, and significant, right? And so once you determine your new identity, now you can look at these habits on step 3, the triggers, right? Here's where you see what stress you off, sets you off. Is it stress? Is it boredom? Is it certain times of the day? Is it seeing your fridge and thinking that you can grab a drink? What are the triggers that bring up these automatic habits for you? And so spotting these triggers will help you maintain control, right? It will help you then get to step 4, where you can recognize your cravings. Okay, right? So what does this habit really mean for us? Is it a comfort? Is it excitement? What happens to us once we see that beer in the fridge or once we see the bag of chips? Like, what happens to us? What are we seeking, right? For me, I craved relief from my shame, and understanding our cravings have has the ability to give us the power to make change and replace it with something better, which would be then step 5 down here in this corner, right? The response, creating new habits and behaviors. Here comes the part where you do the work. You say, okay, what am I going to change? How am I going to make it obvious? How am I going to make it attractive? How am I going to make it easy? How am I going to make it satisfying, right? Replacing beer with sparkling water for me worked, but maybe for someone else, it might be, I'm going to go on a walk, right? And this is our chance to get creative. We need to meet our own needs. It's not one size fit all. Everybody's going to have a different response or new habit. And so finally, then in this habit loop, step 6 is the reward, because we're going to have to encourage ourselves with the small wins, right? Let's be honest. Who doesn't like to feel good? Who doesn't like the reward? So if you didn't drink, or you didn't eat that bag of chips, give yourself a high five, check it off on your calendar, whatever it may be. If you stayed sober for a whole week and drinking's been a 10-year addiction, now you can say, okay, I saved $50 this week because I didn't drink. Let's put that to my vacation fund, right? Give yourself a reward to make yourself know that you can keep on going and build that momentum. And the next step, step 7, is to take that Tony Robbins approach. Ensure your needs are met with this system. Make sure your habits are meeting them. You're not just quitting something, right? You're upgrading. You're finding ways to be more fulfilled, to meet more of your needs, so that it's a win-win for you. And finally, there's going to be negativity, right? There's going to be days of hardship. You may even fail here or there. The important part is to work through that negativity, right? That's why making an affirmation list for yourself is important in the step 8 recommendation, to work through the negativity. Write out the affirmations first so that when you have a bad day, you have something to fall back on, right? So you can say, oh, I didn't go to the gym this morning, but I am someone who prioritizes my health, so I'll do a quick workout when I get home, right? Or, oh man, I had a stressful day, but I am choosing to cope in healthier ways, so I'm going to go grab sparkling water instead. Remember, this is progress. We don't need perfection, right? Just each small action, tiny changes, 1%, it's going to reinforce the new belief. It's going to reinforce the new you. And I know this may feel overwhelming. I know this may feel like a lot, but just know you don't have to tackle everything at once, right? You could think of it like assembling a puzzle. You've got a 1,000-piece puzzle, you're putting the pieces together. It's okay if it takes you some time. You do it right, and hopefully at the end you don't have an extra puzzle piece or missing a puzzle piece. You know what I mean, right? And so I want to show you a couple real life examples to help you solidify this for yourself, to give you a framework to work through. So let's first talk about something that we've been talking about all day today, and this was my track to sobriety. This was my journey with drinking, and I laid this out, on this nice little flow chart for you. But no, it was messy. It was hard for me. It was hard for me to do this. So it's okay if it's hard, but let's take a look, right? So when I did my self audit, I realized that I was drinking to hide from shame. It wasn't just something I was doing for fun. It was an escape mechanism, right? And I felt like Kendrick Lamar in swimming pools, right? Feel shame, drink. Tough week, drink. Friday, drink. It became a cycle for me where I convinced myself that alcohol was my friend, the answer to all my problems. But spoiler alert, it was not. And, now I go to step 2, defining my new identity. I had to get real. I had to really visualize that rock bottom, sit in it and see how unattractive that was to me. Waking up in my own puke, waking up on a floor, waking up on a couch. I had to identify myself as someone who did not need to drink to mask my shame, which then led me to number 3, right? What are my triggers, right? It was feeling shame. It was seeing alcohol. It was knowing the weekend coming up. All of these, just even hearing someone say, hey, what are we doing this weekend? That could be a trigger for me to go back into alcohol, enough for me to set it off. I was like a dog, bowl of food comes out, they start drooling. For me, if I knew Friday was coming around, I was already thinking about that alcohol. Which step 5, finding new habits instead of getting into that drink, right? I'm sorry, step 4. Step 4. I'm even losing it here. Don't worry, we'll get through this together. Power through, right? So, what cravings did I have? I was craving relief. I was craving distraction. I wanted to feel numb. Every drink I had reinforced this because I would feel drunk. It would make me numb, and that's why that craving became, so intense until it wasn't helpful anymore. Which leads me then to how I changed. Step 5, my new habits, which were saying no to alcohol, right? Drinking sparkling water and doing mental health things like meditation, right? This is where the real shift happens, right? This is where the new behaviors happen, where instead of giving into the cravings, I start saying no, replacing beer in my fridge with sparkling water, right? And when I would crave that escape, crave a state change, I would do meditation or I would do journaling instead of giving in to needing that drunkenness, needing to feel numb. And I know that sounds cheesy, but like finding something better, it really did help me. It was really all that much more worth it. And the next step being the reward mechanism, right? What was my daily tracker? Every day that I didn't drink, I actually checked it off in a calendar. And for that first year, all the way to 365 days, I was tracking it, day by day. That gave me that affirmation that I was making progress, saying things like, I'm choosing to grow, right? It works. It works. It really doesn't sound like it'll work, but that new identity will help. And then moving to step 7, making sure my needs are met, right? We went over that, how variety, certainty, connection, and growth were things that meant a lot to me and how I met my needs. in order to change my habit. And then finally, I built affirmations for myself, right? How to combat the negativity. So I had support myself. I would say things like, when because the biggest thing is like people would say, and maybe you can relate to this as a drinker or not, right? But people may say, oh, you're changing, why are you getting on a diet, why are you stop drinking? And it's okay to say things to yourself like, I'm changing because I'm growing, and it's okay, right? And this helps me segue then to this next and final example for you. I know it's been a long one. I know there's been a lot of material. So finally, focusing on mental health. This was something that I pushed out to the peripherals for a long, long time, right? Just la 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 la. I don't want to think about my stress. I don't want to think about my mental health, right? This was a way for me to say, instead of like, okay, life's falling apart, let's pretend like everything's fine. Like, how do I focus on my mental health? How do I be real with myself? And so what I had to do first was a self audit. I realized I was dwelling in negative thoughts. I realized I was pushing my feelings down, right? And where it all began for me was ruminating on everything that was going wrong, right? It felt like I had to dig a big hole, put all that in a box like a treasure chest and bury it like a pirate. And nobody's ever going to find this. Except the gold was more like a ticking time bomb, right? I put it down there and it's just growing and growing and growing over time. Soon enough, it's going to explode, right? And defining my new identity, step 2, what I had to do was get real with myself and realize I wasn't prioritizing my happiness. This was going to be my new identity. Instead, I was prioritizing being right. I was prioritizing ruminating on those past wrongs. He did this, he did that, she did this, she did that, whatever. I felt like I deserved this, I felt like I deserved that. Instead of rumination and making myself feel bad, I'm going to prioritize my happiness. That's the new identity. Number 3, what are the triggers around the situation? And for me, it was feeling overwhelmed, feeling sad, or feeling angry and stressed, right? All of these feelings would surface if I had a new memory, that came down. All these buried feelings, I was trying to suppress them, but it would turn into like a mixing bowl, and all of a sudden a big explosion would come up, right? And so I had to realize that these triggers, that when I started to feel overwhelmed or stressed, that this was what I needed to be aware of, so that I could then go to number 4 is like, what would I crave in these moments that I felt overwhelmed? Oh, I would feel a craving of distraction. I would feel a craving of alcohol. I'd feel a craving of food. And this was a temporary fix, right? Because my brilliant solution was, okay, just don't think about it. If I'm feeling sad, eat some ice cream. Oh, maybe drink a beer, right? Try to hide. And it worked for a few minutes or maybe a day, until that next day came and I remembered everything, and I would feel even more shame or feel even more overwhelmed, which then leads me to this next step, right? Number 5, the habit responses. So the new things I did were journaling, meditating, and working out. I made these a priority in my life, right? Instead of wanting to be distracted, right? Instead of shoving my feelings down, every time I felt a trigger, every time I felt like I needed a distraction, instead of distracting myself with like social media or food, I said, okay, I'm feeling this, I'm gonna go work out now. I'm feeling that, I have shame, okay, I'm gonna go journal about it. So I had these new habitual responses, right? Not only habitual responses, but like we said earlier with those circles, built a process for myself. Okay, I'm gonna work out every day. I'm gonna journal for 10 minutes at 5 p.m. I'm gonna meditate for 5 minutes at 2 p.m. Whatever it is, right? Not only do we have that process for ourselves, but we have the identity, so that if we feel all of a sudden we're triggered and we get this craving, we know exactly what behaviors we're gonna do, right? Now going to step 6, how did I track this? How did I reward myself, right? I like smiley faces, right? So on this aspect, since it was for my mental health, I kept a tracker that every time that I journaled, even if it was for 1 minute, right, I would write a happy face down on my daily tracker saying, you did it today, man. Give yourself a high five, that affirmation. And to step 7, right, meeting my needs. For me, these new habits of journaling and meditating and things like that, working out, it met my needs of variety, certainty, significance, and growth. Journaling gave me clarity, gave me certainty. Meditation adds variety to my life, that calm feeling. It's a different state. I felt different. That's why it was variety. Working out made me feel significant. I could see, my body getting better. It made me feel like I was making significant impact in my life, right? And all of this together helped me feel like I was growing both physically and mentally. And finally, step 8, making sure we have affirmations, right? A lot of times for me, it's always that overwhelm and stress. So anytime that those negative emotions come up, I'm stressed, but I'm working to prioritize my happiness, right? I'm someone who prioritizes my happiness even on tough days. And this is how I remind myself, right? So if you're someone, who's been avoiding mental health, like it's a pile of laundry, like I was doing, throwing it in the back corner that you don't want to deal with, just start small. Start with 5 minutes of meditation or exercise, whatever it is. And if that's too much, just start with 1 minute. Journaling, meditation, walking instead of running, right? These little actions will pile up, they'll compound. And before you know it, you're not just dealing with mental health, you're not just trying to manage, but you're actually thriving and you love it and you step into this new identity, right? And as we wrap up here today, I want to leave you with this thought. You have the power to choose, right? We all had moments where we fell into our old habits. We all have moments where we feel like we're slacking or we're giving up on goals. But here's the thing. You have the power to choose. You have the power to change. You have the power to change your identity. It's not set in stone. I'm a different person than I was a couple years ago. I'm not the same person I was when I was 5 years old. Our identity is not set in stone. It's something that we can shape with the decisions we make. So if you feel stuck, if you feel frustrated, right, just know you can choose to work through that frustration. You can work through the hard stuff and you'll discover that living better isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become, right? And I know things are tough, right? And I always know that there can be self-doubt, right? I know there is always that feeling of being too busy to improve, right? I'm too busy to work on myself. We've all been there. We've all had chaotic times, but just know, spoiler alert, life will never be completely calm, right? Let's be honest. How many times do we say, oh, I'll try again on Monday? A lot, right? It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. Sometimes we're not actually too busy. We're just comfortable the way we are. Eek. Oof. It may be hard to hear, right? It may be hard to hear that we would rather push the wagon on these square wheels when somebody has a round wheel next to us because it's familiar. At least I know this cart works. I did it last time. I'll just do it again, right? Because sometimes that fear of change is scarier than the change itself, right? What if I fail, right? What if I have to give up my comfort zone? Just know that if you meet your needs and you map that out, you won't ever lose anything. You only have things to gain. So as I finish this story, right? As I finish this teaching, I want to end on something real, right? It's okay to have fears. It's okay to fail. We all do it. The point isn't perfection, it's consistent progress. And look at this little note here. Just remember, 1 is more than 0, right? In this bottom left-hand corner, 1 is more than 0, right? If you've never worked out before and you're just doing 1 push-up a day, that's more than 0, So this is infinitely times better. 1 push-up is infinitely times better than 0. 1 minute of meditating is infinitely times better than 0. So it's not just about the fitness. It's not just about the mental health. It's about proving to yourself your new identity, that you can show up for yourself even when it's hard. So what does that mean? What does that mean for us? What do we take away from today is we take it 1 step at a time. Maybe we can't expect ourselves to get everything right from the start, right? Maybe we have to take 1 step at a time. But let me tell you, it doesn't have to be perfect. If we take 1 step at a time, we will still eventually get there. There always will be new priorities in life. There will always be tough times. But the truth is, to move out of the darkness into the light, every step we take, we build more and more belief of our new identity. Don't wait for the perfect time. There will never be a perfect moment. Take 1 step at a time. Eventually you will get there. And remember that the only thing that's going to stop you is you yourself. You have the power to be who you want to be. And that's what I got for you today. You got this. Comment below. Share this with a friend that you may think could benefit. Like this, subscribe for more. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.